Joining me now, one of the men Trump consulted, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Mr. Secretary, always great to have you on. Now, I know you were in the room with Vice President Vance and Secretary Rubio after everything went down. Who suggested that Zelensky needed to hit the road?
Look, Laura, it was a group decision that President Zelensky needed to be moved out of the Oval. And I got to tell you, we were in shock. This has to be one of the greatest diplomatic mishaps of all time by President Zelensky. We were having a press conference, we were going into lunch, and then we were going to sign the economic partnership agreement. This was supposed to be a day where Ukraine and the U.S. intertwined our economic prospects. And instead, President Zelensky, and I think he's probably used to dealing with American leadership that is weak, and he ran into President Trump, and who didn't back down, Vice President Vance, who didn't back down. They were asked to leave the room, then they had to be asked to leave the building, and they were texting everyone, begging to come back out and sign the economic partnership. And I tell you, it's impossible to have an economic partnership for someone who doesn't want to be your partners in peace.
Well, you dealt with this firsthand, did you not? I know you had a meeting scheduled, an economic meeting scheduled a few weeks back with President Zelensky. And tell us about his arrival and punctuality or lack thereof, and it seemed a little sleepy during the events.
Yeah, so Laura, I went all the way to Kyiv because I thought it was important. President Trump sent me there to, again, we were supposed to bring the Ukrainian people closer to the U.S. people, send a strong signal to Russian leadership that we had not only shared values, but now shared economic interest, and also have a strong signal for the American people that their tax dollars were actually going to work. Instead, President Zelensky and I had a very tough 45-minute meeting at a very loud decibel level, and I kept telling him, Mr. President, the purpose of this is to show the Russians there is no daylight between us. And at the end of the meeting, he said, well, I'm not signing this. And I said, at the end of the meeting, I said to him, what do you want to go out and tell the press? I said, because I don't want to go out and show the Russians that there's daylight in between us. And he said, well, I'm going to go out and say I'll sign it in Munich. Then he got to Munich, and he ran into Vice President Vance and Secretary Rubio, very different than Vice President Harris and Secretary Blinken. But he didn't sign the agreement. So finally, we were supposed to have the signing today. It was supposed to be a great day, and this is one of the biggest own goals in diplomatic history.
Well, Mr. Secretary, was he late to the meeting? And did his demeanor? I mean, what I'm trying to get at here, maybe in an incongruous way, is that there seems to be a pattern with him. He seems to be the obstacle toward peace, to getting to peace. And with you, reports were he was late to the meeting. Was he?
Look, it's very difficult to tell what's time. His office is this building they keep dark because of potential drone strikes. So we'd had a security briefing. We were supposed to have a longer meeting beforehand. So it was just the two of us in a room for an hour. We couldn't come to an agreement. But I have to tell you, Laura, today, I was shocked that he would behave like this on camera in front of the world. If he had issues he wanted to bring up with President Trump, the proper venue for that would have been 15 minutes later. We were going to walk into the White House dining room and have lunch, just 16 of us, and he could have voiced his concerns privately. I actually think, everyone's, the Democratic side of the ledger is saying, oh, this was a setup. Vice President Vance and President Trump set up President Zelensky. I actually think he was always going to do this, and I think he was surprised with the forceful reaction he got back.
Mr. Secretary, this was something to behold. People say, oh, well, Trump was the aggressor. I mean, Zelensky was coming to get help from the United States, continued help, and he disrespected his host. You just don't do that. I have never seen anything like that, but I think it was very useful for the American people to see this. and we appreciate all your efforts, economic side and otherwise. Mr. Secretary, as always, thank you.